Recording in progress.
Minister responsible for each sector or subsector whose targets have been determined will then have the opportunity to amend or revise the targets as and when required, and annually report on those set targets on progress to the presidency towards the achievement of the relevant sector emission targets. The minister, in turn, will then have an obligation to collate, compile, and synthesize the reports provided by the sector ministers and submit a progress report in respect of implementation of the sectoral emission targets to cabinet on an annual basis. The next part deals then with the listed greenhouse gases and activities. The minister will, through a gazette, publish a list of greenhouse gases which the minister reasonably believes to cause or are likely to cause or exacerbate climate change. So that listing process must then conform to the PAJA requirement in terms of public participation and consultation processes, because the sectors will then be affected. So a minister will then publish the list of the greenhouse gases and activities which emit or have the potential to emit or have adverse impact on the environment. Minister must then publish that list in the Gazette. The next slide. The next slide, Chair and DG and colleagues, talks to carbon budgets. Carbon budget is basically the amount of allowable emissions. So each sector will be allocated a carbon budget within which they must then operate. If they then exceed that budget, they may attract certain consequences. What I sense from, if I may digress a bit, when we're consulting with communities on carbon budgets, people were misinterpreting the carbon budgets as meaning maybe some form of monetary budgeting and the like. But then that is not that kind of budgeting, but it's the amount of the quantities of emissions that one is permitted to then release into the atmosphere. So there are those parameters then in terms of how much you are allowed to emit and what then would be the consequences if you exceed that limit. So there will be a process of allocation of carbon budgets, and the person to whom a carbon budget has been allocated must then prepare and submit to the minister a greenhouse gas mitigation plan. At the time when the budget is assigned for the first mandatory carbon budget cycle, all approved pollution prevention plans, which are currently in place in terms of the Air Quality Act and the National Pollution Prevention Plans regulations, these are the current regulations, must be deemed to be greenhouse gas mitigation plans. So this is to allow some form of transitioning into the new regime once the bill is finalized as law. The minister will then review the carbon budget allocated to a person in terms of the act at the end of every 5 years, every 5-year cycle, or at the request of the person to whom a carbon budget has been allocated. So if you may move to the next slide. This slide talks to phase down and phase out of synthetic greenhouse gas emission and declarations. Minister will then, in consultation with the responsible minister for greenhouse gas emitting sectors, by notice in the Gazette, publish the greenhouse gas emission plans, or the budget the minister may allocate the carbon budget to persons undertaking activities that give rise to emissions of synthetic greenhouse gases declared in terms of the relevant provision of the Act. In terms of the national greenhouse gas inventory, the minister is obliged to establish an institutional arrangement to facilitate a national system of data collection for creation of the national greenhouse gas inventory and annual compilation of the national greenhouse gas inventory report. If I may please go to the next slide. Well, that was the last slide, Chair. But also to emphasize that maybe there's one area which I think the members may have an interest in around the penalties in the bill. That provision, I think Chloe mentioned it earlier, it was initially in the initial version of the bill, that provision was quite thin in detail. It was just 2 lines, but you will see in the version of the bill that is currently before you, that provision has been improved markedly. We are now prescribing some detail in terms of the offenses and penalties with linkages back to the National Environmental Management Act. Thank you, Chair and DG and colleagues.
Thank you, Chairperson, for our presentation. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, DG and your collective team for your presentation. We welcome it. Honorable members, as I promised you that DM will join us. She's still chairing another meeting. She's on the platform. DM, you can just greet or say something to the committee.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Memudise, and good morning to all members of Parliament, and good morning also to DG and the team. Indeed, Chairperson, unfortunately, the minister is in cabinet, and I had then to chair a meeting that I couldn't avoid not being part of, because it had to do with traditional leaders who had issues with regard to my area of responsibility, forestry in particular. So this is the time that they decided upon, and I thought by this time it would have been finished, but unfortunately the meeting is still on. But I thought I should take some few minutes just to say I am with yourself and members of Parliament with regard to what we are presenting to yourself, that is the climate change bill, which is a very important piece of legislation, as you are aware, Chairperson, especially under these conditions that we are living in as a world, actually, not only as South Africa. I managed then to follow the presentation from the DG and the team. And as we know that we'll all also follow the processes then that you as the NCOP then will decide upon, that is getting into more consultation with provinces who will be part of all those consultations as a department. Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the team. Thanks, DG, and thanks to every member of Parliament in the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much, DM, for those words. Honorable members, now I give you an opportunity to ask questions. And I don't know how are we going to deal with this, because maybe some members will be affected by the load shedding. If members are affected by load shedding, I'll request them to send their questions to Mr. Bauer. Then we will send them to the department. But we can start now by asking questions if we do have questions. I can see Honorable Kathy Laboskachni and Honorable Mama Ngwenya. Honorable Laboskachni.
Good morning, Chairperson, and everybody else. Thank you very much. Yes, I want to say thank you for the presentation, and I think quite a thorough presentation on the bill, making it quite understandable. I think there are a few issues that, as the researchers indicated to us, that has been highlighted by some inputs while the bill was on public participation in the NA process. And that is the things about the when the bill makes provision for offences and penalties in relation to certain clauses, it appears to fail to provide for offences or penalties in cases of a failure to meet a carbon budget or a sectoral emission target. Including this under the offences and penalties will be integral to achieving its national emissions target. And also a concern about when certain carbon budgets are going to be exceeded or that they do not report. And a lot of things about the carbon taxes and emissions that might be covered by the carbon tax bill, I'm not sure. Then myself, I would like to know when we go to the presidential climate committee. I don't have a problem that it's been included. I think it's very good. But I would like to know when they refer to the fact that it will be listed as a public entity, and then says that this chapter further provides for the process of appointing commissioners and the executive director of the PCC, its financial management, reporting requirements, administrative and secretarial report. I just want to know, the way I look at it, that should be a entity with a separate budget coming from National Treasury, or maybe some funds from the department itself. And then the next chair, the next chapter, the climate change response, provinces and municipalities, there is was said the minister must prescribe a mechanism to support the financing of the country's climate change response, planning and implementation by the various spheres of government in consultation with the Minister of Finance. Now, I would like to know, is there a timeline for when this should be done? A lot of things, as this explained according to the bill, is after 1 year or after 2 years. But when is there a timeline how this will be done? Will that be that mechanisms and support to finance, will that be part of regulations, or will that be separate, or will that be through conditional grants in the DORA bill to the provinces and municipalities, or will it be a mixed way of financial means? I think this is one of the biggest issues with all bills, that it doesn't matter what the intent, how good the intent is, and how many things it will be fixed. But if the finances are not there, then it's actually creates a bigger crisis, because then you go out and you create expectations as if everything will be okay, but in the meantime nothing can be done, or very little can be done, because there's no funds. And I'm specifically referring to like the municipalities and the district municipalities that's been mentioned in this bill quite a lot. So I would like to get some information on that. And then I would also like to know if the department has an idea, or as we go on with the bill, maybe not today, but at a quick, soon later stage, where the fund, the climate fund that the president announced in his SONA speech, where will that fit into this bill, or will that be a separate something, or will that be part of the President's Climate Commission? Thank you, Chair.
Very much, Honorable Kathy. Now I'll give an opportunity to Honorable Mama Mangwenya.
Thanks very much, Chair, for giving me this recognizing me. And also, Chair, I would like to thank the presentation from the department. Chairperson, let me start by appreciating the presentation of the department about the climate change bill. Let me begin by saying that it is true that climate change is affecting everyone, particularly the poor of the poorest. I thank the department for developing the climate change bill in order to respond to changes of the climate change affect our country. Honorable Chairperson, I have the following question to ask. 1, climate change is the threat to food security and its impact is felt by the poorest of the poor people. Chair, I wanted to find out whether the bill provides for educational program that will ensure that people learn about the environment and the nature. Chair, also, I wanted to check that does the bill provide special on how education and awareness at all levels will be conducted? If yes, what are those specific? Another question, Chair, I want to check that does the bill provide requirement for climate change scientists to form a part of the technical committee that will assist the Presidential Climate Commission in discharging its duties? Last, Chair, my question is on skills and funding, Chairperson. I wanted to establish whether the bill provides on how to offer the skills and funding to local communities to address climate change. I thank you, challenges. Thank you, Chair. Kalebo.
Oh, no, thank you very much, Honorable Ngwenya, for your questions. I can see Honorable Papa Nyambi, Honorable Papa Mkiva, Honorable Mkiva, and then Papa will follow.
No, masibonge kakhulu sihlalo. Ngimamele yonke le nkulumo mayisethulwa ukuthi ngamagosa esebe. Hayi iyavakala inhle futhi mhlali ngaphambili. Into endiyithandayo into kokubana okokuqala ka kuthiwa thatha o esisakhiwo somthetho kuyabonakala into yobana zifikelelwe zonke inkalo ngoba uMzantsi Afrika ulilizwe elinamacala endingathi ngamacala amabini, icala lasemadolobheni necala lasemakhaya. Kuyabonakala into yobana umsebenzi wenziweyo lisebe mhle ngoba ufikelele kulo ngcamango kwaye waqinisekisa into yobana kuzabakho intatho nxaxheba yabantu basemakhaya kunye nobukhosi. Siyayibulela loo nto sekela mphathiswa Sotyu ngokuthi niyenze loo nto kuba xa ingenzeki isoloko ishiya umsantsa obonakalayo. Njengoba esitsho uMama uNgwenya ebuza ukuthi ingaba ikhona na indlela yokufundisa abantu ngesimo sokutshintsha kwezulu ngoba bayabetheka kakhulu abantu basemakhaya futhi sithetha ngento eseyifikile eseyidale ingxaki enkulu ngakumbi emakhaya kuba iindlela azisahambeki ngenxa yokutshintsha kwesimo sezulu nokufika kwezikhukhula zemvula ezifika zonakalise yonke into amazibuko kube phantsi phezulu ibe bubutyobo. Ndiyafuna ke ukubuza into yobana xa nisakha umthetho njengokokubana singurhulumente woMzantsi Afrika lapho isininzi sabantu seli lizwe ingabantu abangama-Afrika abanini belizwe, ingaba umthetho niwakha ngesilungu? Ukucinga kwenu niwucinga ngesilungu na? Ndibuza ngokokubana xa sizawuya ebantwini siyofundisa ngokwakhiwa kwalo mthetho umhle ngolu hlobo, seninawo na ngoba niwothula kuthi ngoku ngesilungu, ingaba ukhona na ngezinye iilwimi zemveli zalapha ekhaya? Futhi ndiyafuna uyigxininisa le nto, Sekela Mphathiswa, uba kaloku bekufanele uba xa sisaka umthetho ube ngumthetho ozawungqinelana nemveli yethu. Ngoko ke njengokokubana kwanina ningabantu abacinga ngemveli, andiqondi uba nicinga ngesilungu kanicingayo. Siyafuna into yobana nisinike isiqinisekiso sokuba lo mthetho ukhona ngeelwimi zemveli ukwenzela uba uzawukhawuleza ufike kwaye wenze intsingiselo kubantu abawumameleyo basemakhaya abangasaziyo isilungu. Okwesibini, ndifuna uqonda into okokubana ingaba xa nijonga abantu abanezakhono, nijonga abantu abaqeqeshwe ngemfundo yasesikolweni kuphela na, okanye niyithathela ingqalelo into yabantu abanesiphiwo semveli kwicala lesimo sezulu, njengabantu ababizwa ngento okokubana ngamagqirha ezulu okanye izanuse zemveli? Ngoba kufanele uba ibe yinto esiyenzayo leyo, singajongi ngeliso elinye xa sijonge ulwakhiwo lomthetho kwilizwe eliyinxalenye yezwekazi laseAfrika. Yinto leyo ekufanele into yobana siyikrwelele umgca ngaphantsi, singayibethi ngoyaba. Asoze sibe ngabelungu, singabantu abantsundu, singama-Afrika. Nemithetho esiyakhayo funeka ibethe ngesingqi esilolo hlobo. Ndiyasifaka ke isincomelo kule nto sigqitywa yicelelo kuba ithe vetshe ngokubona isitsho into yobana ubukhosi nolawulo lwemveli luzawuthatha inxaxheba ethe vetshe. Siyiqhwabela izandla loo nto. Kodwa ke ndiyanqwenela into yobana nikhe niphefumle ngale mibuzo ndiyibuzayo kuba yeyona nto izasincedisa ekuqinisekiseni into yobana abantu bayayisingatha le nyewe kwaye bayithatha bayibeke entendeni yesandla sabo. Ndiyabulela mhlali ngaphambili. Chairperson.
Yabulela, Sihlalo. Yabulela. Oh, Papa, now it's your time.
Thanks, Chair. Greetings to Deputy Minister, DG, and all people coming from the department and colleagues. I must welcome the presentation and the input by the Deputy Minister. And indeed, Chair, we're dealing with a bill that we are still to get to a stage where we want to celebrate it as a serious milestone in South Africa in response to this issue of climate change. The development of this bill is something that is very significant and we're not taking it for granted, and we have agreed in some quarters that it's something that is long overdue. While some other questions have been covered, I'll have some few, Chair. The first one is the one that the bill is making the provision for offences and penalties in relation to certain clauses that are very clear as you go through it. But it appears to fail to provide for offences or penalties in cases of a failure to meet this thing of a carbon budget or sectoral emission targets. So if that can be clarified, because it can go a long way to address some of these unintended consequences of the outcome of the bill. The second one is the one that include the pertinent penalties for instances where the very same issue of carbon budgets are exceeded, or where progress is allocated on carbon budget is not reported. This is another issue that I think it needs some consideration, maybe if it can be clarified so that we are on the same page in terms of understanding. The last one is the one of some stakeholder that there seem to be that concern that the current provision for National Treasury to impose a punitive carbon tax will provide emitters with an option to pay for pollution. And don't we think that it has got, if they haven't exceeded the formula for calculating that fee, don't you think that might have some other implications? But otherwise, the essence and the rationale behind the bill, I'm one of those that I'm confirming that is long overdue, and the presentation has been very detailed, except the few questions that have been raised by members and adding one or two, so that once we get an opportunity and start getting to our respective provinces, we have a better understanding. And I'm happy, Chair, that it has been confirmed that department officials will be ready to be with us on the days to be confirmed so that we can be able to start the process. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyambi. Let me recognize Honorable Marindi Nana. Honorable Nana.
Hi, thanks very much, Chairperson, and good morning to honorable members. Really, most of the questions have been covered by my colleagues. But Chair, I think it will be amiss of me if I do not raise this. You will recall there was a climate change conference in Dubai held in December last year. And there was a tapestry on display. And this tapestry was really illustrating in a most simplest way for people living in rural areas, people that could be not so much literate. It was illustrating in the most simplest of ways the impact and the effects of climate change. And when this tapestry was introduced to the president mentioned a possibility of either taking this tapestry to the United Nations or found its new home in the union buildings. I would really want to check what's the situation with the tapestry, and secondly, tying to the questions by Mama Ngwenya and I think Honorable Mkiva about education and awareness aspect. How much prepared is the department in rolling out a most simplest message on the effects of climate change? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nana. I think all members have satisfied with asking questions. If there is any question, like I said before, you can direct that question to Mr. Bauer, the secretary of the committee. He will refer them to the department. Now I give back to the department to respond for all the questions that were asked. Department DG, DM.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and members, for all the questions that you have raised. I am going to request the team to respond to some of the questions, especially the technical questions in relation to the issues of carbon tax, but also what are the plans of the department in terms of ensuring that provinces and municipalities are resourced accordingly for them to be able to implement the responsibility that this act is going to put on those spheres of government. We will also deal with the aspects of how do we ensure that the act is communicated to all the people of South Africa in the different languages. I think we are going to respond to that so that it is then understood even by every community member and also everyone, the people on the ground, to appreciate how government is assisting and what is it that they need to do in terms of the challenges that we have of climate change. I'm going to come back, Chair, after the team has responded to these questions and cover some of the aspects, especially around how are we going to mainstream resourcing of programs that will respond, working closely with National Treasury, that will respond to the impacts or even proactively deal with issues of climate change before the damage happens. So I will hand over to the DDG, Mr. Kekane, and also I will also request the chief directors in that branch, Jongi and Klo, to also add, and then I'll come back to some of the issues, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. Before that, I made a mistake not recognizing honorable members from the provinces. I can see their own platform, and I didn't give them an opportunity to say something if they have something. Honorable members from the provinces, do you have any question? Because I forgot to recognize you. I can see Honorable Dr. Mang, yeah. Honorable Dr. Monica.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me take this opportunity to thank all the honorable members present and our support staff from Parliament, Legislature, together with departments. Honorable Chair, let me appreciate the presentation. I think what Honorable Dodovo and Mama has the questions they have presented, they covered me. Those are some of the questions I would emphasize. And secondly, the other question which was placed openly is the issue of translating the bills into the 12 languages, the 12th one, which is it's a sign language, because that's the problem we are facing. When we go out for participation, we've been dealing with the bill recently from LIDED. People are saying we are not doing justice to the bill, because when the act comes, we become flooded with the act and we are not really receiving it in good faith. Why? Because we were not involved in our own language. So the request which I want to emphasize is that let all the bills be, when we go for participation and for people to be able to engage fully and to raise issues which will assist our bills, that when it comes to become a law, they are given, a fortification by the people who understood in their language. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thanks, Doc. And my apology for not recognizing you guys. It was not to say I undermine you. It was I didn't see initially that you are in the meeting. Any member from province? If none, I can give back to you, DG, and your team.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm going to request Mr. Kekane to start responding. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, and good morning to Honorable Chair and Honorable members on the platform and colleagues. DG, I think the most burning question is really around the penalties and offenses. And I think we should start by asking Jongi to deal with that and Sibusiso to add to that. But Sibusiso to also pick up on the PCC public entity questions. And then I'll come back and answer the rest of the questions with Chloe, who is sitting next to me. But through you, DG, let's start with this burning one around the penalty.
Thanks, Marcella. Thanks, DG. Good morning, honorable members. Let me just also switch on my video. Yeah, good morning, honorable members, and good morning, Deputy Minister. Yes, in terms of the carbon budgets, you will see that the bill doesn't say anything in terms of penalties for non-compliance against the allocation of a carbon budget. Or the original version that we had actually had a provision on this. And then when we engaged the state law advisor, I think the guidance that we were given was that we could not make reference to another piece of legislation that has not yet been reformed to deal with carbon budgets in the way that we're proposing. So the guidance was that we should wait until the carbon tax addresses this issue of how the carbon tax shall be used to enforce the carbon budget. Then on the side of Treasury, they are actually waiting for the bill to be passed into law to make those provisions. So what this would mean is that in the regulations for allocation of carbon budgets, we will actually stipulate how that will work by making reference to the carbon tax that will be reviewed after the Climate Change Act has been passed into law. So this is how this would work. The manner in which this would work, as Treasury has communicated in the previous budget vote speeches, is that if a company exceeds the carbon budget, it will pay a higher tax rate on those emissions above the budget. For example, if the company was allocated, let's say, 100 tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and then after this 5-year period for which they are allocated, they exceed that 100 tons, maybe they emit 110 tons, it means that they will still pay a normal tax rate on the emissions within that allocated budget. In other words, the 100 tons, and then they will pay a higher tax rate on the additional 10 tons of emissions that they exceeded. Treasury had communicated a rate of 640 rands per ton, which is quite high. But we will see what the final rate they will confirm. So this is how we will then make use of the carbon tax to enforce the administration and enforcement of the carbon budgets. There's also a link to what we call the mitigation plans. So the mitigation plans are actually plans that industry submits to the department that highlights what are the actions they will be taking in place to make sure that when we assess their meeting of a carbon budget, those actions helps them to meet the carbon budget. Now, the idea is that since that is linked to the carbon tax, one cannot, apply, enforcement in terms of non-compliance. However, here we are looking at both penalties in terms of non-compliance against the budget, but also we're looking at administrative penalties. For example, if a company fails to submit a mitigation plan or a carbon budget, or they also fail to report progress against the carbon budget or against their mitigation plan. So those administrative penalties and the conditions relevant to them will be stipulated in the carbon budget mitigation plan regulations that we have started working on at the moment, so that by the time the Climate Change Act is passed into law, those regulations will be ready to be subject to public participation and commenting, and then finalization. So that's how this system will work in the sense. And then there was a question in terms of whether the companies might end up not wanting to comply and then only deciding to pay for the tax. I think this has been recognized, and what Treasury has been doing since 2019 has been really testing the implementation of the carbon tax. And one of the things that came out very clearly, even in the portfolio committee discussion, was that the tax rate as implemented now is not sufficient to induce behavioral changes from the company. So that comment is very relevant. So I think Treasury has communicated again over the past budget for speeches the trajectory that they will be using to increase the carbon tax rate, and at the level that will start enforcing behavioral change. So I think with that, that will make industries really to comply and also implement measures that will help with meeting their carbon budgets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jongi. Sbusiso, maybe if you might come in here before we go further.
No, thank you, DDG and DG and honorable members. I think Jongi has covered the aspect of the carbon budget sufficiently. From my side, just to add is that if you look at Regulation 27.2 of the bill, it's quite clear that the minister will then develop regulations related to compliance with and enforcement of the allocated carbon budgets. So there is an enabler then in the draft bill for further for development of regulations. But as Jongi said, there is engagement with Treasury to ensure that we are aligned with their processes in relation to carbon budgeting. And initially there was a clause in the bill, but then we were advised to remove that because it was going to render the bill a money bill to some extent. So we had to remove that. And with respect to the aspect of the PCC as a public entity, the clause 10 is clear that the PCC will be an independent legal entity with its own persona. It will be listed as a Schedule 3 in terms of the PFMA. So that is then an enabler for the continued existence of the PCC. There is work or discussions that are ongoing between the department, the PCC, and National Treasury to work out the modalities on how then to ensure that that listing in terms of Schedule 3 of the PFMA happens as envisaged in the bill. But the idea was that once the bill is finalized or is enacted into law, the current PCC that was established by Cabinet will then continue to exist. The commissioners that are there will then will be allowed to complete their terms. But parallel to that, the Treasury, the PCC, and the department must then finalize the modalities of having the PCC listed in terms of Schedule 3 of the PFMA. As I said, there is work underway with in terms of discussions in this regard. I'm not sure if I should end it there, DDG.
No, that's fine. That's fine, Sbusiso. I think that's sufficient. Just to pick up some of the questions that were asked by Honorable Lebska around the issue of financing for municipalities. All I can say with this one is that because this is something that came out strongly in the portfolio committee meetings, work has already started between DFFE and National Treasury in terms of costing the bill. So that piece, as Jongi has said, is also progressing parallel to the adoption of the bill. So National Treasury is engaged with the process of costing the bill, and we are participating in that. And the other issue that is related to the finance from Honorable Lebska is around the fund that the President mentioned. Just to say this, as it was announced as the Climate Resilience Fund, this is actually bigger than what we are talking about for municipalities. But the process of establishing that particular fund will also be announced soon. But this is largely to allow us to do things such as recovery and reconstruction and so forth and so forth. So it's a separate matter, although still dealing with the issue of climate change. And then in terms of the financing for the PCC, I think the PCC, as already indicated, will have its own separate budget from National Treasury. And through you, Chair, I would allow Mr. Amaru, who is next to me here, to deal with the other issues of education, skills, and traditional leaders and stakeholders and so forth. So,
yeah, now thanks, Chair. On the issue of the traditional leaders, I think let me start with that one. The bill make provision for them to be, nominated to serve in the PCC, and the bill further make provision for the various technical experts to serve in the technical committees that can be established. And they are also included. So the whole issue of indigenous knowledge systems would be one of the key components that will be considered in engaging on climate change. And in fact, we have been having some of the projects that we really undertake in Limpopo, where we assess and get the indigenous knowledge information, and with the participation of traditional healers. So I just wanted to underscore that indigenous knowledge is going to be a big component of climate change response. On the other issues, I think the issue around skills and awareness, there are functional areas there where the Department of Education will also be one of the functional area where we'll be working with them to develop, among other things, the national adaptation strategy. If honorable members check at the end of the bill, there are listing of functional areas, and the education component is going to be one of the big area for adaptation. But over and above that, we continue doing different awareness, working with our own awareness team in the department to do that. And the food security as well, the Department of Agriculture is also central to develop the adaptation response plans. And we are doing a lot of work with them on climate smart agriculture. So some of these activities, honorable members, are ongoing, and the bill will just really reinforce them and give them the legal status. I think I've covered most of the issues, Honorable Chair. Over to you, DDG.
Yes, just the last one, which is around the tapestry. Indeed, the President was highly impressed. As Honorable Member mentioned, that it's the simplest way of depicting what is climate change, how it affects communities, and what needs to be done. We will do some follow-up with the team in the presidency and DERCO itself to establish whether that tapestry has found its way to the union buildings. But that is something that we will ask our communications team that works closely with the people that presented the tapestry to follow up and to see exactly what is happening with that. We fully agree that that depicts the message quite clearly as the president indicated, but we will follow up. Thank you, and back to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Maisela. Honorable Chair, the team has responded on the various questions. There's just 3 aspects that I also want to respond to. The first is around the issues of budgeting, resourcing, municipalities and provinces. I think the DDG has indicated that we have started engaging with National Treasury to cost the implications of the bill. And that work is ongoing. What we are also doing with National Treasury is to try and be proactive and look into ways in which resourcing climate change can be mainstreamed into the planning and also the budgeting processes of government, because this is a condition whereby when you plan for infrastructure, you need to plan for infrastructure such that it's resilient to the floods, it's resilient to the various conditions that may be caused by climate change. So it, in a way, it does introduce a different way of planning, but also ensuring that when you then plan, you are then taking into account that there will be certain conditions that the infrastructure will face, and that which will cause that infrastructure to be damaged. And therefore, we need then to have different designs and so on and so forth. So that's what we mean by mainstreaming. Over and above just looking at funds, we also would want to ensure that we proactively mainstream the way of doing business in terms of planning and also budgeting within government. So that is what we're taking up and discussing with National Treasury. On the issues of the bill and the act being only in one language, predominantly in English, and I think honorable members are quite, it's quite true that we need to ensure that we have a translation of some of these instruments that we put to the public as government. I think at the moment, what tends to happen is that it's translated to about 3 or 4 languages at a later stage, and maybe we may then need to look at how best at a stage of consultation we try and ensure that whatever bills we are introducing to our communities are translated in the respective languages where we are going to be consulting the various communities. I think currently it's an area that is really requiring improvement, given that predominantly we just focus on English, and obviously maybe using local interpreters in certain consultation processes. The document itself is not necessarily translated in all languages, but that's something that we would need to improve on at a consultation stage. Obviously, I think it will also be dependent on resources allowing us to do that, given the constraints that we face. The last one that I want to also respond to, Chair, is yes, the team has indicated that as a department, we do raise awareness at a community level, but we also work with our entity, the South African Weather Services, where they also carry out awareness programs, given that they are able to, especially around weather conditions. And they are able to then carry out awareness programs in communities in relation to the impact of climate change and how best then we can be in a position to at least put measures in place to avoid the negative effect of climate change in the various communities. I see our legal team, Mr. Kobose, Honorable Chair, wants to respond. I think the rest of the other areas the team has provided responses to. With your permission, Chair, can we allow Mr. Kobose to just provide additional information? Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, DG. No, from my side, it's just to just emphasize the aspect of funding. Firstly, to say in the bill there's dedicated funding related provisions. For example, if you look at clause 15B, which empowers minister to then prescribe the funding and support and the finance and support mechanisms. This fund will then be dedicated to supporting municipalities in particular. But then the key thing here is that this provision says minister must then prescribe the modalities for creation of this fund. So it means that there will be, once the act is finalized, there will be regulations that will be talking specifically to the funding mechanisms. And the clause 27 is clear that those specific regulations must come back to Parliament for consultation and endorsement by Parliament. So honorable members will still have an opportunity to then input or into those regulations related to the funding mechanisms and approve those as well. But in addition to regulation 15A, there's also regulation, I'm just checking the bill, regulation 15B. Regulation 15B then deals with the, if I can go to the provision, with the funding of the PCC itself. It then details how the PCC should be funded by parliamentary appropriations, donations. The PCC must develop a funding strategy which will ensure that the PCC is sustainable in its operations. So those are the two layers of funding that are prescribed in the bill. Then on the consultation part, DG has covered it, but from my side, it was just to add that as the part of processing the bill, the Parliament or the Bills Office, once we get to that stage, will then translate the bill into one other official language. So that is the process in terms of finalizing the bill within the Parliament. But at the departmental level, we may then consider translating it into other languages as well, so that it's accessible. Then there was the last question, which I think we're missing in submission, that a question whether the scientists will be part of the PCC committees. And that is covered in clause 11. It's 11, I think it's 11, I'm just looking at the bill. Clause 11.3 of the bill, which enables the PCC to establish committees and to establish committees. Those committees must then be comprise suitable qualified persons, including environmental, who have expertise in environmental management, climate change, mitigation of finance law, and related fields. So the wording related fields presupposes that any relevant field can then be represented in the PCC committees. So this may as well extend to the traditional people. I think Honorable Mkiva may refer to Abantu Abanesphiwo Semveli or Izanuse. If their expertise, of course, their expertise is needed, but then there might be a need to make a determination whether they can then be part of those committees or not. But the Act is wide enough to cover all expertise that is needed. Thank you, DG and Chair.
You must go fetch the child, Mana.
Nico.
No. The other one with your foot.
No, you mean Lango?
Honorable DG, are you done?
Yes, Chairperson, from our side, we are done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, the department, for presenting the very important bill to us. Now it's our responsibility to go for public hearings. As you said, DG, that your department will be part and parcel of the public hearing that we are starting on the 26th or 27th, somewhere there. Hopefully they will be there and assist and again translate, like when we go to the, what do you call it, the rural areas, because we are going for the rural areas for these public hearings. So thank you very much, and your team, DM. Now I take this opportunity to thank you, and we can leave the meeting. You are released till we meet on the public hearing. Thank you, DG. The members of the committee, we must remain and continue with our business, committee business. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
In the short time, Aska, do we correct so that we can continue with the business of the committee?
Yes, Chairperson, we have enough present to adopt the minutes.
Okay. And then while we will be adopting the minutes, can you brief us in the process, how far are you with the public hearings, the readiness, so that members, when they go, they must go and prepare themselves, or they prepare to see their schedule. How are they going to handle it? And don't forget the dates of the public, I mean, the dates of the plenaries. Because plenaries, we have to be, all of us participate in the plenary. Okay, in the meantime, you can put the minutes of the last meeting, so that we can adopt, or we before we adopt, we can check whether the minutes are fine, so that we can adopt. Honorable members, here is the minutes of our last meeting last year. Let me check first whether the committee, the official sent the minutes to you for you to check them, whether the grammar or anything that is missing that was discussed during the meeting that day? Members, did you receive the minutes on time?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, no, thanks. Okay, this is the first page. The first page. Yes. Okay. Okay. Members, just want to check, is it the true reflection of that day, these minutes?
Thanks, Chair. Ngwenya.
Yes, Mama Ngwenya. Mama.
Chair, I'd like to adopt the minutes as it is. Thank you.
Okay, let me second.
Sorry, Mama. But I just wanted to check which date was this. This minute.
Ask Kana, what was the date?
21
November.
Did Honorable Mkiva was part of the meeting?
Yeah. No, I was. Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
he
no.
was.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can second.
Bengifuna nje check nje chairperson ukuthi maybe I am mistaken. In this meeting, we were not also briefed about the international trip.
In this meeting?
Yeah.
I don't remember. No, no.
Chair, it was the second meeting after the discussion of the international trip.
Yes. No, it was the second meeting. I remember
Yes,
very well.
after, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. No, I second Mamungwenya on the adoption of the minutes.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Mkiva. Aska?
Yes,
Can
Chair.
you just brief us the date for the public hearing and which province are we going? Honorable members, we decided not to go to all the provinces because it's the year, it's towards the year end, the financial end. So the parliament for now doesn't have money for all the provinces to go there. So we are going for public hearings in the 2 provinces. Initially there were 4, but because of budget, we negotiated with the provinces to deal with the bill on our behalf. So now we are going for 2 provinces, and I would like to get information from Aska when, which province are we starting with?
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, as per your advice, we changed the program and we drafted it. We were supposed to be starting on the 26th of February. We'll be going to the Northern Cape first. And we will be ending we'll be going from the 26th to the 1st of March. And then from the 4th of March to the 8th of March, we will be going to Limpopo. The current situation is that the program has been drafted. You approved the program. The political application is currently, it's been submitted. It's with the unit manager in committee section. It's been compiled, submitted. They now will do the quotations, costing, flight arrangements, public hearing arrangements, costing, and then we will then submit it to you for your signature. once all that is done. And then it goes to the House chairperson and to the chief whip for their approval. After those signatures have been received, then all the flight arrangements and everything will be made. At the moment, it is with the unit manager in committee section, the application. They are busy funding everything. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, but I remember when I spoke to you 2 days ago, you said the very same program is with the same manager. Is it still in the same manager? The reason why I'm asking that, Asker, is because Northern Cape, we know there is a problem of accommodation, there is a problem of flights. So if your managers are delaying with the program in their hands and still gonna go to the House chair and go to the chief whip, I don't know, but I don't know.
I will follow up with them immediately after the meeting and bring it to their attention again, Chairperson.
Okay, Ma'am Kathy?
Yes, I just want to ask a question on clarity. And I want to know, this public participation that you say, that was now said that we're going to the Northern Cape and to Limpopo. Is that the select committee's public participation? Are those provinces not going to do their own public participation from the province side?
Oh yes, Honorable Kathy, is a select committee join.
If that is
join with is a select committee join with the province. The reason why we are going there is because the provinces, they are saying they had a lot of bills that are in front of them. Now we are going, and maybe 2 or 1 person will join us from the legislature.
Chair, I really have a problem with this. If we say that we are going, the select committee of the NCOP is now undertaking to do the public participation on behalf of the province, and 1 or 2 persons go with them because we don't have the money, but the other 7 provinces have to do their own public participation. I think this is really a difficult situation because 1 person of a committee or 2 persons of a full committee in a province will have to give a mandate based on what we got from the public. My understanding always has been and has been in the past, and we've dealt with big bills, is that we ask for comment from experts on this field, and from any other organization that wants to, and we invite them to Parliament, and they can do their written submissions, and then they can come and the committee can decide if there are people who want some oral submissions, and they come and they do their oral submissions here. Because in the end, I think it is also good for austerity measures that if you have to bring 10 or 14 people from across the country, or maybe 20 people from across the country, or make it 30 people from across the country to come and do their presentations here in Cape Town, where the committee is sitting, or if we have to move to one place and go and sit in Bloemfontein for 3 days for this, to just make a comparison on what will be more cost effective. Because for us all to fly to 2 different provinces and stay for 2 or 3 nights in hotels and all those things, I am sure it will cost more than getting the presentations to the committee, while the provinces still have to do their public participation. And if the province is saying they have too much bills to do, This is a plight that I was fighting for in the WIPS committee. This is really not a criteria for a select committee to embark on this way. Then we have to prioritize the bills, and the provinces have to give feedback and say, we can't do 10 or 11 bills at the same time. We cannot. Yes, I really,
Okay.
I don't agree with this, with the way we're going. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Honorable Katie. I think from the onset, I did explain the reason why we are going to those provinces. And I do understand, I noted your concern about the finance. Yes, that's why we are not doing the whole country. And we choose those two provinces that we spoke to them, and they raised their issues for not be able to do their own public hearing. So that's why we are going there. And also, Ma'am Kathy, we have to do the public hearings on those two bills to make sure that we go to our community, we explain the bill so that not only Parliament can do their mandate without consulting with them. If the province will be able, for example, my province, Northwest, tomorrow, tomorrow they are going to for public hearings. So we don't go there because the province is dealing with the public hearings. But those provinces that are not able to do their public hearings, before we do the program, we spoke to all the provinces, the 9 provinces, to see the chance of them to do the public hearings. Because initially we used to do that to send the call for the community to make their input, and then we continue. But at some point, we get the letters after that to say we didn't cover the community, we didn't cover so many people. So this time we want to cover everything. We don't want to leave any unturned stone. That's why we are going there. So I think, Aska, you must continue with doing the checkup with your managers to get that program so that we can go to the house chair and the chief whip. And don't forget, like I said, the plenary days. We must circle those plenary days so that all members must be able to participate in the plenary.
Hello, it's Nyambi.
Oh, Honorable Nyambi.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In view of the fact that we are discussing something that has not yet been approved, and I don't know what's happening, what happened, I suggest that your management should deal with this issue outside this committee, because as we're speaking now, we don't have that approval. And today, Honorable Labuskakhne is correct. We had a WIPS meeting and we adopted a program that will guide us till the end of this term. And in that program, there was nothing that was talking to what we are presenting. So it will be good to iron out whatever that is still outstanding, so that once we come to committee level, we are very clear. Otherwise, it might end up creating a problem. And you might find that the day we are talking about, it's so unfortunate that I'm in another office. I don't have that program that was adopted today. You might find that on that particular day, it might be clashing with something else. I'm not aware, but I suspect that it will be good to clear it out, because it's not yet been finalized. And once we can confirm, it will be simple. But I get a sense that there's something that Aska is not telling us, because or yourself as a leader of the committee at the management level, that we're supposed to resolve. Once you come here, we are presenting something. We have had oversight trips in the past, but it has never been an issue in terms of logistics. But now I don't know why we're discussing something not approved as if it's approved.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Indeed, you are right. I just wanted the information from ASCA, not the discussion. No, thank you very much, Chair. I thought the reason why I was asking where is this, because I wanted that thing to come to your committee, to your office as soon as possible. No, thank you very much. I will handle it with the management, with my committee. No, thanks. Honorable members, let me take this opportunity to thank you for participating in this meeting. See you next week. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Chairperson.